Hey guys, Mike here. So today we're going to be talking about some things I'm hearing on these conference calls from the earnings and stuff, especially when it comes to what's going on with the consumer, right? Not how many times me and you both been talking about how there's really two different kind of economies, right? The have-nots and the haves. The haves have the appreciating assets. The have-nots don't have appreciating assets, okay? I've been on both sides of the track, so I know. So I'm not trying to insult anybody. But you'll see it, and what I'm going to tell you with some of these, the largest fast food chains and what their CEOs are saying and everything, it probably shouldn't surprise you, but it might. We'll also talk about something that's going right now where people are talking, oh, well, we're all-time highs, but the stock's above their 50-week moving average or at this percent and stuff. And so we'll look at it, right? We'll see what happened last time we set all-time highs, and is that kind of iffy or whatever. And so we'll look at that. Plus, a lot of stocks had, some pretty big moves today. News coming out like NVDA, Tesla had some news come out. Palantir continues to squeeze. Some other earnings stocks like a Roblox or something we're going to talk about as well. Big move there. And according to the McDonald's CEO, low-income customers making less than $45K per year have largely stopped ordering from them. And I don't know where this is at, but if it's in your area, let me know. A Big Mac, fries, and drink has risen to nearly $18 at a handful of locations. I'm in North Florida. Ours is around between 9 and 10 right now. But, the one reason this is because they did a big hike in 2023 of 10%. They're going to try to slow it to single digits. And then when you go to Yum Brands, who just reported this morning, I believe it was, or last night, their CEO comes out and they own Taco Bell, KFC, Pizza Hut, and they're saying the same thing, right? Then low-income people basically have just started cooking at home because supposedly grocery stores, their prices are dropping faster than these fast food joints. And I got to tell you on another note that only in America can you have a bad product and raise your prices. In the NFL, I'm a Bears fan, so I can say this, and anybody who's a Bears fan can back me up. They have a terrible product. They're a terribly run organization with a terrible ownership. But every year they raise those ticket prices, and it's average between like $1,400 to $2,400 per person for these season tickets. Yet they keep raising it, right? It's unbelievable. And people keep buying. I have no idea why. I would never buy a season ticket to one of these games. Because I don't know anybody would buy season tickets to a losing organization like that and with such bad ownership. I mean, if you're ever going to root, teach your kids, I'm teaching mine. If you're going to pick a sports team, pick one with good ownership. That's what really matters. If they got bad ownership, you're going to be sitting at home a lot of years just going, well, there's another year wasted. That's what's going to happen. As a side note, I got off on a tangent. I apologize. But going back to, consumers and stuff, we're seeing this all over. You saw it was a Chipotle, I believe, said the same thing where they don't even see people to make below X amount of dollars in their restaurants anymore. Just ain't happening, which, by the way, it's good for them. It's more healthy to cook at home than it is to go to these fast food joints, by the way. So, hey, somebody I saw make a comment say, pharmaceutical companies are going to be hating life now, which is probably true if you think about it. I mean, you might see people's health actually get better because they're not eating these fast food joints. But it is crazy to think. I mean, I know down here, like Wendy's and Burger King, you can't get a combo below $10 anymore. I mean, there were 7 pre-pandemic. Now you can't get them below 10. They're not even lowering the prices. They keep raising the prices. So, as I teach my son, just because he don't have money, but, even if you have money to spend, don't mean you got to let somebody rip you off. And I'm sorry, those combos are not worth 10, 11, 12, 15, 18 bucks. That's crazy. I mean, it's ludicrous. So, we don't eat at certain fast food joints anymore just on general principle. I have to go to McDonald's because all his friends and him, and God knows I grew up on it, love their nuggets and, that kind of stuff. So we still do it. But, we eat out less for sure because I'm not letting these people rip us off. That's ridiculous. The food ain't got no better, so I'm not going to give you that much more money for it. I'm good with regular inflation. But when you're hiking your prices up 10, 20%, not me. You're going to get me, son. I don't know about you. Put in the comments if you're falling for that. And guys, before we continue, if you'd hit that thumbs up, I'd certainly appreciate it. It helps people find the video. And if you like the content, think about subscribing. Now, when you look at the S&P, and as far as what stocks or percentage of stocks are above their 50-day moving average, why we're setting an all-time high, and you see it. I mean, this percentage is going from like 90% down to 63 on the S&P, while the stock market continues to go up. And we look back, over here at 2021, it was coming up. We were having this big rally. You can see kind of the same thing, right? We had a huge amount above the 50-day moving average and then kind of stalled out and it started to come down, right? Before we set the 2021 high, and then, of course, the market sold off. And so when I look at this, does it look fishy to sit there and have your percentage of stocks above the 50-day moving average going down or do you keep going up? Absolutely. But let's not forget, this is what happens when like 9 or 10 stocks account for 30 to 40% of an index all by themselves, and they keep getting price upgrades over and over, and big money just continues to push them and push them in these straight lines up on these charts. So, are we due for some kind of really good pullback? Absolutely, we are. But again, I'm not saying this time's different or anything. But I mean, what happened today? I thought we were getting to 5,000 for sure, but we only got to 4999.89. Got like 0.04% away from that 5,000 mark that everybody was trying to pick. And then we sold back down a little bit. But, put in the comments if you think we're getting there this week. I think we're definitely going to get there this week. I'll be surprised if they don't continue to push this thing up, as that S&P now has moved out of the channel that it was in right there. And when you look at stocks like Tesla, for example, you can see this right here had a good day. It ended up popping up, gapping back down. It hit that trend line, right, that it broke yesterday. That's where it bounced at. And so this one moved up. Didn't quite close above that 188.84 area, which was what we were looking for. The other things it did do, though, however, of course, was you get the RSI above that 30-31 area. The MACD, this is not quite crossed. I think tomorrow's when you'll get to see the cross. When we have an update, you'll finally get to see an official cross on the daily. Did break the trend line, of course, we know. But what you really want to see when you get the really big moves in Tesla is when that freaking MACD crosses that 0 line and that RSI goes over 50. That's when you get the really big moves. But it's a ways away from that. So, volume's looking pretty good on this one right now. Again, you got your weekly move expected around 196.79 max. It had broke that nice resistance line right there. Hopefully it's going to turn to support. It did not. Keep that in mind. You do have an RTH gap right there that goes all the way up to 207. So we'll see if it wants to try to move up, or finally the whales start moving back in. You start to see the options flow, which I still haven't seen since this thing went down. And let me know if you have, but I haven't seen any kind of sweeps coming in for it. But when you look at it, pulling out here, you can see putting that volume profile up that it is in the volume gap, right? And so if it's going to move, this is the best time to try to move up to around 207 right there, which would fill that RTH gap and move it all the way through that volume gap. Something else which has been bullish for other stocks, I don't know if it's going to be bullish for Tesla, is supposedly Bloomberg was reporting they were asking their managers, about the efficiencies of their employees and do they really need them. So you might see layoffs, so pay attention to that. Now, what we talked about just the other day, every time NVIDIA shows weakness, what happens? A firm comes out and gives them an upgrade. Here comes Morgan Stanley this morning, seeing some weakness. We're going to raise our price target from 603 to 750, which is a pretty dang big move from Morgan Stanley because they're usually pretty conservative. And what happens? NVIDIA goes up, and you also get to see AMD go up. And one thing AMD keeps doing over the last 3 weeks and multiple times here now, it keeps testing that previous all-time high right there. And so will we make it back down the trend line? Don't know yet. It's really hard for a stock to keep selling off if you keep getting upgrades, right? Especially on the big data. And NVIDIA usually pulls them all up, right? And so that's what we're going to have to see. Is this going to turn into like a downward channel right here? That's what we got to make out. Or is it just going to pop off the previous all-time high now that it's turned it into support multiple times and start heading back up? Again, if you look at AMD's past behavior here, you can kind of see normally what happens. It'll start falling down on the channel, right? Bouncing back and forth, and then it'll go for a huge move up. Again, now we're at all-time highs. That's a little different, usually a little harder, but this one right here, that's what we got to figure out. What I'd love to see is to break that previous all-time high, come down, test that trend line again, and then get its bounce. And I will say it must be nice to be the executives of AMD because these guys are super rich. I mean, the EVP and the president sold around $28 million in shares after they reported earnings last week. And that's just a nibble of the amount of shares they have. So that's really nothing. I mean, it must be nice, right? Because used to make that kind of money, that's how things have changed. You had to put your own money into a company and try to start it and take a lot of risk to make that kind of money. Now, these guys get hired within 5 years. They got a chance to be billionaires. They have so much money. I mean, without having taken any risks, without taking any loans out, without starting a business, just become the CEO of one of these big mega caps. Hundreds upon hundreds of millions, right? I mean, the NVIDIA CEO, I'm pretty sure he is a billionaire by now, right? I think he is at least. But yeah, that's how it works now. Now, when you get to Amazon, obviously this one right here, gapped up over that part right there. We're on the weekly here, so you can see it has nice support right below. The question is, when you look at the daily, that is an RTH gap. Will it come back down, try to refill it, or just go ahead and start heading higher? We're still going on a 3 to 5 day rule on this one. And so we'll have to see if it's going to do it or just turn into support. Because remember, RTH gaps that gap up don't have to feel like RTH gaps that gap down, okay? Because the stock market's usually moving up. Now, Shopify, you can see another nice day for this one. It has filled this RTH gap completely now. And if we kind of pull out and look, you can see just because of the way this thing moved up and crashed down, it's in a volume gap on this VRVP here, volume profile. So this thing could keep churning up to $90, $91 for sure before it actually hits resistance. And so we'll put a line in there to mark that out if that's what it chooses to do and continue to get pushed up. And it's one of those things, it moves with Amazon, right? These two stocks kind of move together. They're both e-commerce and stuff. And so if Amazon keeps moving up, you can see it drag Shopify up as well. And this is a very big mover right here. So again, it's sitting at 85 now. Could move 991 if it chooses to for the rest of the week. Palantir, this one continues to squeeze up. Look at those two daily candles. So again, gapped up way above any resistance, right? Finally got out of that little shaded area right there. Obviously overbought like crazy right now. This one right here, as you can see, is moved up into what was an RTH gap, an RTH gap down. And if I actually adjust it, it's actually, let me see, that's actually too high. I pull it down some, there's the gap. And if we scroll back over, you'll see that's where it stopped today, right? It started filling up the RTH gap, which usually, and sometimes you'll get a rejection. But again, it was such a big day. And you pull in this volume profile, and we kind of zoom out here. You know, we said yesterday this could run to what? 24, 25, right? Before it starts actually hitting some form of resistance and everything. And so no surprise there, as you can see right there. And, you know, should we get a rejection there? Probably so. I mean, you would think we would get something kind of cool down just because of this big move up. And again, since it's still setting in this volume gap right there, you know, maybe move down, mitigate one of those fair value gaps that it's created, and then continue to move up. And tomorrow I actually draw a channel right there. As you can see, if you start back in June and go forward, that's still that upward trending channel right there. So we'll draw that out. Maybe we get a bounce back down. We'll see. Let me know in the comments what you think is going to happen there. Now, looking at Roblox, this is one that had a big day today, up double digits after earnings right here. And the important thing for this one is it had to get above the all-time high anchor VWAP. It has been absolutely rejected multiple times, but we've been above it once before. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rejections right there. And it got above it last time. You know, oh, finally. And then, nope, sold right back off. So this one tends to move up. It does like a SoFi and then sells back down. But again, there's a lot of resistance. You can see this chart is a mess, right? Ends up IPO at what, like 70, 75 bucks or something like that. It comes up and then just crashes completely. It drops like 90-something%. And so if it can get above 40, 48 right in there, I think it is, then it could finally start to move up to at least $55, $60, right? But you just got to get out of that box right there. It's been in there since February of 2022. And it's just one of those stocks that's been stuck there, okay? But they did, you know, show pretty good earnings, pretty good growth. So the market liked it, and we'll see if it can hold on to it or it pulls a SoFi. Now, when you look at earnings tomorrow, we're going to end up with some oil companies. You have Cameco as well. Hershey's, I just like to listen to for the consumer and stuff like that. And plus, I'm a chocolate freak. Affirm, Pinterest, Cloudflare, Expedia. We get to see if we're still traveling and everything. CleanSpark, which is, of course, a miner for the cryptocurrencies. Then you'll have the jobless claims data coming out before the market opens up. And then after that, you'll have a 30-year bond action at 1 o'clock. Because I think the 10-year went okay today. I don't think it was something magnificent or whatever. But if you're hesitating to buy 10-year, I can only imagine 30-year. I mean, I wouldn't buy it, but you know, maybe one of you guys would or something. I mean, we'll see what happens. And so I think they set a record on the 10-year today from what I read and everything. But the market definitely did not go to all-time highs after 1 o'clock. And you know, it did go up. So that kind of lets you know it wasn't some crazy spike in the you know, rates or anything. So that's how you usually know something went really bad, when you see a big move in those rates. Okay, so if you don't see that, things must have went okay. All right, so tomorrow we'll get back into it. Tomorrow, Thursday, start putting in your questions for Saturday's video if you want to get those answers as well. Even though I'll start working on Tool Friday. Just want to put that out there to you. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Make any kind of predictions you want on earnings, because there is a boatload of them coming out tomorrow, and then some is Friday as well. And are you surprised? I forgot to mention Bob. I guess I'll talk about that one tomorrow, but that one did another dumpster dive because their economy is horrible over in China, even though they're trying everything to rescue it. You would think the market would start bottoming at some point in time. But again, like I said, until that little line on the Hang Seng Index gets broken, It's all a big guessing game. All right. Until then, doesn't mean anything. So hope you guys something out of it, guys. Have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow.